Greetings adventurers, this is Cosmo Warforged, and today we're going to be covering my top 3 mods that are going to get you to reinstall and replay Baldur's Gate 3. Even if you're a veteran with hundreds of hours on this game, these 3 mods are going to massively modify the game, add on new content, new spells, new enemies, new foes to fight, and even tweak the entire gameplay system to the point where you are going to want to go back to Baldur's Gate 3 and revisit Faerun, taking on all of its greatest challenges. So the first mod is going to be Brawl Real-Time Combat, which is going to add, as the name implies, real-time combat from games like Pillars of Eternity to Baldur's Gate 3, entirely changing how you will play the game. Next up we have is Expansion, which is going to introduce levels 13 to 20 for your characters, and if you get it with the supplement Advanced Tabletop Spells, you're also going to get all of the spells from 7th to 9th level, including spells like Wish and Meteor Swarm, which are absolutely hilarious to use in the battlefield. And this is just going to give us tons more options. It works for the patch 8 classes. I will say that all these mods, they are working with patch 8. They have been updated as of June. The month of June was really big for Baldur's Gate 3 modding, so these are all going to work. The last one we have, of course, is going to be Trials of Tav Reloaded. So this is a classic roguelike mod for Baldur's Gate 3 that added on the ability to take on random enemies in random environments. If you just want to deal with combat, optimize builds for battle, this is the mod for you. You're just going to get tons and tons of action, and you're going to get to fight so many cool enemies too. So what makes Trials of Tav Reloaded, this version, so special is that the mod author, Celerev, has taken Hippo's previous mod, rewrote it to add on additional enemies, additional maps, tons of different gameplay, and actually added in some endgame bosses too, to make it so that if you're playing with the expansion mod, you actually have high level content to put yourself against and to test your skills upon in the battlefield. And so these 3 mods are going to drastically alter your experience playing Baldur's Gate 3, and I think you guys are going to be very interested in seeing them. So let's cover each one individually. Let's start off with Expansion. Right, so before we talk about Expansion, I want to cover these Baldur's Gate 3 Mod Manager, because that is what I highly recommend everyone installs so that you'll have access to all of the requirements for these mods, primarily script extender as well as mod configuration menu. Check the links in the description below. Everything that I talk about in this video, it is going to be in the link for the description below in the video. You're going to want to go to the site for Baldur's Gate 3 Mod Manager. You're going to want to go ahead and install it, extract it to any non-protected folder, so not your program files, and once you've done that, you can boot up the launcher for it. It's going to open up into this, and we want to make sure to set our game data path to the appropriate folder where we have installed Baldur's Gate 3. It's typically going to be the drive, and then Steam Library, Steam Apps Common, Baldur's Gate 3. There's the data folder, and the executable path is going to be in the bin folder. So once we have that set up, you're going to want to get script extender, which all you have to do if you're using the mod manager is go to Tools and then download and extract the script extender, and it's going to do all of the work for you. You don't even have to worry about it. Next up, we're going to want to download the mod configuration menu, which again is going to be in the description, link for that. Download it, and then you're going to want to import mod when you are inside of the Baldur's Gate 3 Mod Manager, and then just select mod configuration menu and open it up, and it's going to appear on the right hand side of the inactive mods. You drag and you drop it on the left hand side, and then you export load order to actually install that mod into your game. Now, once we have done those steps, we're going to be able to get our first mod, which is Expansion. All right, so as I said earlier, Expansion is going to unlock the level cap from 12 all the way up to level 20, which is where D&D 5e actually caps out at. And so we get access to all the class features and subclass features from this mod. For spells, because this mod does not come with those spells at higher levels, I'm going to also recommend you get the Advanced Tabletop Spells mod. This is going to unlock all spells from 7th to 9th level from D&D 5e. This gives us access to some really powerful spells we'll talk about in a second. But first, let's talk about the actual things you get from Expansion. So if you play D&D 5e, you'll already have a good idea of what sort of features are going to unlock at higher levels. But if you have not played D&D 5e, you're going to get access to some really powerful things. primarily capstone abilities that are unlocked at level 20, as well as some really useful optional features that you get from things like Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. These are going to help out your characters as you're progressing in the lower levels. So things like Barbarian's Primal Knowledge, you get this at 3rd level. This is going to unlock extra skill proficiencies for your Barbarian, so they're more useful out of combat. Or the Rogue's Steady Aim feature, which you get at 3rd level, is going to allow them to not move for the turn in exchange for having advantage on their next attack, so they can proc sneak attack far more easily. Super useful abilities. And then as you're getting into the higher levels and getting access to new class features and subclass features, things like the Fighter are going to get Action Surge at level 17. At level 20, their capstone, they're going to get a 4th attack, so they get to make 4 attacks per turn. If they Action Surge, they get 8 attacks per turn. If they do it twice in a row because they have 2 Action Surges, they get 16 attacks over the course of 2 turns, which is absolutely crazy. Barbarian gets Primal Champion, where their strength and con gets bumped up by 4 to a maximum of 24, making them absolute gods of strength and sturdiness. If you play any of these spellcaster classes, you're going to get access to 9th level spells at level 17, which, let's swap over to the advanced tabletop spells, is going to mean you have access to some very powerful tools. Borderline broken. There are spells like Shape Change, which allow you to turn into a powerful Archfiend or a dragon, a straight up just dragon. You can fireball people in the face as a dragon. How freaking cool is that? Or you can even turn into a Planetar. This is going to be a 1-minute spell. You have to maintain concentration on it, but while you're maintaining concentration, you get all of the power of these high level creatures, which is absolutely ludicrous. It's really fun. Then there's spells like Meteor Swarm, which are just the blaster of blaster spells. If you want to nuke the battlefield, Meteor Swarm is the spell to do it. It does 20d6 bludgeoning and 20d6 fire damage in 4 massive AoEs. They don't stack, unfortunately, but it's still a shit ton of damage that you can output in a single turn to wipe an entire army. And there are some encounters where you're going to need this spell, and where this spell is going to just decimate the battlefield and be amazing. So access to the 9th level spells, things like Powered Kill, Psychic Scream, super really cool abilities. Even other 7th and 8th level spells, things like Maze, Firestorm, Feeble Mind. You're just going to get access to a ton of tools that you didn't have previously in Baldur's Gate 3, and I think that's going to be very exciting, especially for people who haven't played D&D 5e before, so you're not even familiar with these spells. There's going to be a ton to learn about and find out about, and that will be very exciting. So that's expansion in a nutshell. Let's cover the next mod, which is Trials of Tav. All right, so the next mod we're going to talk about is the Trials of Tav Reloaded, which is a recreation, a newer, updated version to the previous 2024 Trials of Tav, made by the mod author Celarev, and of course the previous mod author was Hippo. This is a mod that completely changes the way you play Baldur's Gate 3 because it turns it into a roguelike. To kind of summarize what was from the original edition of this mod, it's random locations, random enemies, random loot, special unlocks, scaling difficulty, and a new game mode for BG3. So when you download this mod, the prerequisites are advanced tabletop spells and script extender, which we've already covered. When you download this mod and boot it up, it's going to ask you, do you want to enter the Trials of Tav? At which point, when you enter it, then you'll have yourself, your party, any hirelings you want to bring in to customize, and you're going to dive into just random battles and random fights. So starting out, you're going to have something called Rogue Score. It's going to start at 0, and it is going to increase by 2 to 5 every single time you clear a run and defeat enemies. You're also going to get currency as well, and depending on your rogue score, you can then spend currency to unlock specific types of upgrades. Things like unlocking your illithid powers, or getting some very special and powerful passives. You can spend this to upgrade your characters to progress them, and then of course as you defeat enemies, you will get random loot, which you can then upgrade your characters with. You never know what you're going to get. On one run, I got a Snowburst Ring very early. On another run, I got a super powerful greatsword, and it completely changed how I was building my characters, tweaking them. All of a sudden, I had my fighter become a great weapon master. All of a sudden, I had my sorcerer start focusing on ice magic. It's really going to change the way that you play and you strategize depending on the random unlocks you get. And that made it feel a lot more like a roguelike, where you are adapting to the specific needs of the situation and the types of items that you're getting. That's really fun. Now, in addition to the previous things that Trials of Tav added, which was that roguelike game mode, the Reloaded version has even more monsters. It has new custom monsters and boss fights as well. So you can encounter Vlaakith and Zariel, which I'll show on screen. some really powerful high-level enemies that are gonna allow you to make use of expansion and the advanced tabletop spells and let you fight and progress up to these epic encounters where you're gonna be fighting major threats, these godlike foes. And once you get to level 20, you're gonna also feel like an absolute god in terms of the power level of your character. So if you want to get that scaling that you just couldn't get in Baldur's Gate 3, this is gonna be the mod to challenge you. There is a super boss at level 27. I have already shown him. You have a pretty good idea of what he is, and let me tell you what, he's an absolute menace. So you're gonna have to strategize. You're gonna really have to build your characters well to be able to take on this super challenge. Pretty much not the max, but like the soft cap is going to be a rogue score 300. Once you get to rogue score 300, which trust me, you would have to put in a lot of time into Trials of Tap to get to that rogue score, then you're about at the end game where you can unlock New Game Plus and you could start over and try to progress even further, push it to the limit. Trials of Tav Reloaded to me is such a really cool mod, especially for players who play BG3 for the combat, for that tactical combat. This is just going to test your limits because you're going to have so many different and new combat encounters that are outside of the vanilla experience. Sometimes it'll be on a map that you're not familiar with or an area in which you haven't had a fight before. And then sometimes it's just going to be against enemies, groups of enemies that are in combinations you've never seen before and really change up how you're going to play against them. Maybe there's an enemy that's going to constantly summon darkness on your party, but then there's also another enemy that's going to create a CC spell that's going to keep them trapped in the darkness, and now you have to figure out a way to get over that. So this is a really fun mod. It does have some options to tweak things, such as enabling a challenge mode where enemies are going to scale faster. There's a hell mode if you want to make it absurdly high difficulty, where you're just going to be fighting swarms of enemies all at once that are typically going to overwhelm you, but if you have built your characters to be busted enough, you may have a chance to take them down. And then lastly, there is going to be a lone wolf mode. If you want to play as a solo character, this mode is going to rebalance the rogue score system so that you're not overwhelmed by too many enemies, but it'll still be a very satisfying challenge as a singular character. And that pretty much covers the entirety of Trials of Tav, what this is like until you play it for yourself. So check it out on the Nexus, and let's dive into our next mod. All right, so the last mod on our list is Brawl Real-Time Combat, which, as the name says, and I've already showed, it's going to be real-time combat where enemies are fighting simultaneously to you and your allies rather than in a turn-based initiative order. This completely changes how you play the game, and it is a little bit more oriented towards melee-based characters who can make tons of auto attacks and deal lots of damage. But if you want to play a spellcaster, it's actually really powerful, especially if you're playing it as the PC. If you have your AI companions running as spellcasters, you can set it so that they are either burning through spell slots or conserving them, but it really makes more sense if you have control of it yourself. And this does have a pause button, real time with pause, so that it is a lot more controllable and you can, micromanage your characters in between things. For the requirements for this mod, we're going to need Animation Unlocker, so make sure to download that and install it as well. Super easy, you can just import mod, and then once we have this mod up and running, some of the features we'll have besides just the real-time with pause, which again is going to completely change the way you play this game. We do have some party commands, so if you do left alt +1, that is going to instruct your companions to regroup to you. If you do left alt +2, that is going to focus fire on an enemy. If you do left alt +A, that is going to attack move your companions in a similar game to StarCraft or other RTSs. And with these party settings, you'll be able to have more fluid control if you don't want to do the pause system. But again, that is completely up to you whether or not you want to. I will say this makes combat go so much faster. You will get through your combats in less than a minute, as opposed to spending, a few minutes, several minutes to take on turn-based combat with yourself and a couple enemies. This is going to make things go a lot faster, a lot smoother, But you're going to more often than not be taking damage because enemies are going to just flood in. They're going to be attacking your guys and you're going to be attacking back. It's a lot harder to strategize avoiding damage and damage mitigation unless you are burning through your control spells and options very frequently. So there are a few things that we can adjust. We can adjust the AI turn length, where we can specify the enemy turn length in seconds. This is going to make things a lot easier or a lot harder depending on how short or how long their turns are. So it's up to you, whatever preference you want. The default of 6, I think, is actually a very good starting point. Initiative die, you can decide how swingy initiative combat is, which will decide, whether or not the enemies are going sooner rather than later. Hit point multiplier, the hit points multiplier, I do recommend increasing this maybe to about 50%, so 1.5. That way you can take a few extra hits, which you're going to be taking because it's in real time and it's harder to react. But that way it's not too ridiculous to the point where your healing spells are useless and your regular damage spell slots are not going to be as valuable. But also it's not underinflated where you're going to be taking way too much damage at once and you're going to constantly be needing to heal because you're low HP. So try a 1.5 multiplier and keep the default AI turn length. Now, if you want to change the combat speed to be faster or slower, and I would recommend slowing it down because it is so fast paced, you can use Speed Hack RS. There is a little bit of a guide on the mod page on how you can do that. Then you can run the game at 70 to 80% speed, which is going to make things a lot more manageable in terms of controlling your characters and overseeing what the enemy is doing all at once. This is a free and open source mod as well, so if you're a modder, you can check it out and maybe you can make some tweaks to it as well. But I think Brawl is definitely one of the biggest changes you can make to Baldur's Gate 3 in terms of the fundamentally how you play it. And that's why it's on this list. I highly recommend trying it. Personally, I'm probably not going to be using it too much unless maybe I play with some friends. Then we'll use this mod and we'll try to see if this can accelerate our gameplay quite a bit. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the list. Those are 3 mods that I very likely will think can get you to reinstall Baldur's Gate 3 and start playing it again. Baldur's Gate 3 is, just a great game, such a fantastic game with such a good core, and the modding community for it has been very solid. There are some really big projects in the works to add on content to Baldur's Gate 3. Full adventure modules being implemented into Baldur's Gate 3. But again, those are really big projects. They're probably not going to be done anytime soon. When they do get done, I'll be making videos on them very likely. But until then, try out these mods, give them a shot. Hopefully you will enjoy them, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.